Do you feel that Irish people have been enabled to have a proper discussion about the strategic, if you like, direction of Ireland, or is it something that has just been put down to it's worth money to us and we're happy to roll along with it?
I think that's very true. I honestly think that our entry into 1973 was probably a good thing in retrospect. I know some of my friends who are on the anti-federalist side don't agree with me on that, but I think it was part of our growing up as a country. I think I'm very strongly in favour of cooperation in Europe. I believe I'm very pro-European. But I think what's been happening is essentially by stealth, a movement continually on the kind of the Jean Monnet model of the creation of a federal United States of Europe, which I don't agree with. I think there has been a huge attempt to make sure that we don't actually get involved in discussions on that aspect of it. The only time we really focus on what the European Union is up to or what its direction is when we have a referendum. And then you get a much better view or a much better sort of take of what people's attitudes are. If you ask people generally in some of these meaningless surveys conducted by the European movement, do you think Ireland, it was a good thing for Ireland to join the EU? Most people say yes. And because of the prevailing sort of media and political consensus, they would generally agree with platitudes. But then you turn around and say, are you in favour of a European army? Oh no. Are you in favour of massive contributions from Ireland to the EU budget, which doesn't go to agriculture or helping weaker countries in Eastern Europe, but rather to new defence and grandiose schemes? The answer is no. So almost not all the new policies, and I should have of course added tax harmonisation on that, all the new policies are generally opposed by people in Ireland. So I have to ask them, why are we going in this direction when you cannot name even one policy which is being developed at the moment, which is in our interests? And I think once you say that, you get a much better response. But try and get into the airwaves or try and have a discussion with some of our politicians, and their eyes glaze over. And somebody says, you're not going on about that again, as if you're a moaner. But I think they are very fundamental questions.
What's your analysis of how official Ireland has behaved towards the UK in the context of Brexit? Specifically, back in 2016, at the time of the Brexit referendum, the Irish government, led by Enda Kenny, actively lobbied, including inside the UK, for a Remain vote. And to be fair, it was a point acknowledged in Irish media outlets at the time. That kind of state interference, is that the norm, do you think, within the EU, or is it something that just the Irish government of the day figured it would do?
That's a very, very good question. The Irish government made a few very ineffectual activities in London, because all surveys, in so much as you can read with surveys, means that the very large Irish-born population on the island of Britain, about 600,000, voted almost exactly the same as the host population, so it had no effect. And the other point I made is that there was one part of that had a vote where the Irish government probably had a legitimate reason under the Good Friday Agreement to intervene. That was in the north, and of course they did nothing in the north because they had ever since about 2005 2006 the Irish government disappeared from the north. I mean, I do acknowledge in the book that Varadkar and Coveney came back a bit, but under Enda Kenny and the subsequent ministers for foreign affairs and justice, the Irish government essentially didn't exist north of the border, and everybody, even loyalist paramilitaries, would sort of say they disappeared. So that the other element of that question is something I touch on it, is about interference in other groups, because there are people in Brussels like Verhofstadt who almost have adopted the Brezhnev doctrine that countries have limited sovereignty and that they have the right to interfere. And just the same as Schreiber said, no, elections cannot change economic policy. They believe that the electorate cannot change the march towards the European Union. So there's a fundamental question there about interfering in other countries' internal affairs, which I disagree with entirely. And the other one of the Irish government in Britain feeling that they go over to London and shake a few flags. One of the other things which I touch on in the book is I cannot understand how the Irish government connived with the British establishment and the House of Lords to try and thwart democracy in a neighbouring island. I mean, the House of Lords and British establishment have been doing it on this island for generations. Whether it came to Parnell, whether it came to Redmond, yet they never seem to see the irony of this. They tried to paint Brexit as some type of, tough revolt by people who wanted the empire, not realising this was in many ways a peasants' revolt. It was a revolt in the north of England and all, and that was glossed over.